times in the Bronx and Queens in the past 9 months.
Nobody, not even police, knew anything about him, and that fear of the unknown forced people off the streets.
They've been shot with a .44 caliber Bulldog revolver, an especially deadly weapon.
He has killed 4 women and a man, all of whom had long brown hair.
They're afraid. You never know when you turn around who's going to be there.
Like, my sister will not come out of the house now.
It's just too dangerous. You can't take the chance.
Several notes left by the killer at the crime scene indicate he may be a religious person.
Sam's a thirsty lad, and he won't let me stop killing until he's had his full of blood.
We are increasing the manpower in all areas of the city.
The largest task force in police history went into high gear as the city went into high fear.
Over 50 of the city's best detectives pore over clues and run down leads.
An animal like this has to be caught.
The killer has taunted
Patricia Hearst was a complete surprise.
Was that another airplane?
our newsroom. Son of Sam.
Everybody get out now.
Difficult to know what it is exactly that attracts people here. All that one can be absolutely sure of is that it isn't the conversation.
$150 subpoenas were issued during the sweep against prostitution in the Midtown area Friday night, but the raid doesn't seem to have had much effect. This is Galaxy 1 at 127 East 47th Street, and it's certainly open for business again on Monday. The Intimate Room at 701 7th Avenue is another of the massage parlors raided Friday night and open for business again today. District Attorney Robert Morgenthau concedes there's a long road ahead to closing the massage parlors down permanently. I'm Bill Littauer, Channel 11 Action News.
Here, in front of 2860 Buer Avenue in the Baychester section of the Bronx, 18-year-old Donna Laurie was sitting in a car with her friend, Jody Valenti, in front of Donna's house. 2 shots blasted through the car window. Donna was killed instantly.
This guy deserves to die, and it's just the way I feel. My daughter was 18 years old, and that's what he took out of my heart, 18 years. And I hope they get him. I really, really do.
There have been 8 murders on New York subways so far this year, and countless assaults, robberies, and rapes. These protection patrols aren't sanctioned by police, but most patrolmen admit that the sight of the red berets has become a powerful deterrent. Norman Reese, News at 10 on New York City subway.
It seems to be a high crime area. Possibly the density of the population, everybody living close, upon each other. It's hard to say.
For just $67, you can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera or use any fancy editing software. With Doodly, you drag, you drop, you tweak some settings, and boom, video done. It'll take you just a few minutes. So, let's hear from the Doodly creator, Brad, to see why Doodly is so easy to use and why you should grab this offer right now.
Hi, I'm Brad Callen, and in this video, I'm going to show you how anyone can quickly and easily create doodle videos, just like the one you're watching right now, using Doodly. Alright, here I am inside the Doodly software, which is available for Mac and PC. You'll notice
guns are readily available throughout New York, and criminals don't hesitate to use them.
Pickpockets, muggers,
purse snatches, holdups, burglaries, robberies, car thefts.
Pushed to the ground and stomped, thrown down a flight of stairs. You've never had this type of crime before.
It is a middle-class neighborhood, quiet and family-oriented. There's not much crime here, especially violent crime. And this happened late at night, right at the steps of the Lamina household, just as the girls were about to go inside.
All right, the two young girls returned home to their neighborhood at about 12:30 at night. They were saying goodnight to each other when they observed an unidentified male white, approximately 30 years old. He approached the two girls and attempted to engage them in a conversation, at which time the girls decided there was something wrong with this guy. They wanted to go into the house. And the man all of a sudden started firing. He fired approximately 5 shots.
I heard Joanne, her friend, crying. So then me and my father got up and ran outside. And like we saw him all bleeding on the floor.
Did you see anybody out here at all?
No, I just heard the shots.
Last week, a tourist was casually shot dead in his car when he stopped at this traffic light on Broadway. So far this year, there have been over 800 murders in New York.
You got to give those people work. You got to give their children education. Yes, you've got to give them housing. You got to give them a chance to make it.
Christine Froon, 26 years old, soon to be married, is dead today. Dead in a shooting that has no apparent motive. And dead, perhaps just because, by chance, her boyfriend, John Deal, had to park 4 blocks away from the movie theater they were visiting.
As they both got into the car, all of a sudden the right passenger side window caved and he heard 3 shots and his girlfriend slumped.
I revved the engine once or twice, and then all of a sudden there's a crash. I turned and I seen Chris falling like this towards me, and I grabbed her. I started screaming, Chris, 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 and then there was one more bang, and like I had her on, I pulled her towards me, and we went down, I went down in my seat, like, I went down, and I heard one more bang.
Every night coming home from school, it was an easy passage for Virginia Roscareshin. Leaving the subway 2 blocks back, she would come down here to Dartmouth Street, turn right, and would then have to walk approximately 2 blocks more to Essex, where she'd turn left and into her door. But last night, she only got this far.
They killed a girl again. Of the year, I never hear those things. What happened now? What's changed? She was coming from the school, from college. Okay, this is it. We need protection. We are paying taxes, and plenty. Okay.
We have determined that there has been a .44 caliber revolver used in every one of them, which is why, as the mayor mentioned, It's important that any person having information with respect to anyone who's in possession of a .44 caliber revolver call us. The general description that we have is of a male, white, 25 to 30 years of age, 5 feet 10 inches to 6 feet in height, medium build, well-groomed with dark hair which is combed straight back, and wearing a raincoat type of outer garment, tan or brownish.
Keenan, what do you know about the way this man operates? Do you feel he selects his victims in advance, or how does he go about his?
We don't believe he selects the victims in advance. The way he operates is apparently he prowls by car. He roams the neighborhood by car, and when he sees a likely target, gets out and stalks them by foot. He generally is shot at couples sitting in parked cars.
Now this guy, he's got to be stopped somehow, some way, you know. I think at mostly all your bars or discotheques, something like this, has to be watched for single guys that hang in there alone. Because I have a feeling that this guy hangs out in these places and he follows. He picks out his people, like, you know, that he's going after, and I think he might even wait for them, you know.
Do you feel personally threatened by the .44 caliber killer because you have long dark hair?
Yes, I do.
Has his existence in any way interfered with your movements at night?
Yes, I stay in.
You didn't stay in the past?
No. I don't feel free to go out, to walk the streets or go out at all.
Excuse me, I'm Jeff Kamen from Channel 11 News. Do you feel personally threatened by the .44 caliber killer because you have long brown hair?
No, not at all.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid to go out in the car. I'm afraid to do anything. Never know where he's going to be.
Have you ever thought of cutting your hair or wearing it up because of this guy?
No.
Did you ever think of cutting your hair because of him?
No, I never thought of going to that extent of it. I just don't want to be recognized. I thought of maybe dyeing it a little redder or something, really.
This is headquarters for one of the most intense manhunts in the history of New York. Search for the .44 caliber killer. Operating out of this office, over 50 of the city's best detectives pore over clues and run down leads.
Reliable in the past, huh?
On the wall are snapshots of the victims, most of them pretty girls with long, dark hair.
The largest task force in police history went into high gear as the city went into high fear.
This is a police sketch of the suspect in one of the nastiest murder cases New York police have had come their way in a long time. The killer police are looking for is called the .44 caliber killer because of the weapon he has used.
Someone had killed young girls with long hair, mostly parked in cars. Police started looking for a white male, 5'8" to 6 feet, 180 pounds, straight black hair. But they weren't really sure what they were looking for. He struck in the dark of night, popping out of the shadows in the Bronx and Queens. No patterns, no clues. Police were frustrated and fearful of more murder.
What are your feelings this morning as you do come out, though, and you...
We're afraid. We're afraid. Yeah, we're all afraid now.
Very unique in this area. This has always been a very quiet
But
area.
it can start any time, can it? In any area, right? That's the thing.
The one hard lead is the gun, a .44 caliber Bulldog model manufactured by the Charter Arms Company of Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Police are trying to trace the ownership of every snub-nosed .44 in the country, an estimated 28,000 guns.
As a unique particular gun. And when we have that gun, our ballistics people will be able to say that is the gun we're looking for.
What's it going to take to break this?
A lot of luck. We're going to have to be in the right place at the right time, the way I feel. We put the men out in the areas where we think, or there's at least some possibility that he's going to be in that area and hope that we're nearby when it goes down, you know, and hear the shots or get a report quick enough where we can get there.
But right now, there's really nothing to go on.
Nothing.
The victim that's selected usually satisfies something on a fantasy level, and he selects somebody that has certain qualities, and so every time he commits the crime against the person that has this thing, he's satisfying this basic need of getting back at the original individual that he had difficulty with.
Early yesterday, the killer struck again, returning here to the Bronx 2 blocks from his first attack. 18-year-old Valentina Suriani and her steady boyfriend, 20-year-old Alexander Esau, were parked in his car on the Hutchinson River Parkway service road. At 3 a.m., 3 shots tore through the side window of the car. Valentina died, a bullet wound in the head. Alexander was hit twice in the head. He died at 9 o'clock last night.
I am the son of Sam, the note declared. I am not a woman hater.
Because of the publicity and the attention he's getting, he starts to thrive on this. And so eventually that takes over. The killing becomes one of kind of recognition, a crying out, hey, listen, I'm here, don't forget me.
In New York, the search continues for the .44 caliber killer who has come to be known as the son of Sam.
The mayor and police commissioner Card feel that the solution of all this is so important that they've set up a 24-hour telephone service number to call if you have any information.
There seems to be some interest out in the streets to do with this case. And we...
Is that a healthy interest, do you think?
Is that a healthy interest, murder?
Yeah. Or in this particular kind of...
Gee, Shakespeare had no trouble finding it healthy.
Many young brown-haired women in Queens are worried about their safety because of the .44 caliber killer.
Like my sister will not come out of the house now. So will any of their sisters. So we want to escort the people who are scared. Like, help out the people.
By day, it's common to see young women with kerchiefs over their hair or hair pinned up because most of the victims had long hair.
When you get people cutting their hair, when you get people dyeing their hair, when you get my wife who was scared to even walk the street, when you get me who was scared to walk the street, for God's sake.
We used to stay in front of my house and parking, you know, and kiss goodnight, but we can't do that no more. You know, just go right in.
You have to be careful. You have to watch where you go now. You know, how late you stay out and
Have you restricted your own movements?
Yeah.
You don't go out as much as you used to?
No, and I'm always with somebody, you know, that I know I'm going to be taken right home or whatever, you know.
What about your friends? Are they doing the same thing?
Yes, even when they don't have long hair, you know, same thing. It scares you.
Business has fallen off in some discos and bars where young people congregate.
I think this guy's very intelligent. I think he's very crafty, and I think that during the day he acts just like everybody else. He goes to work, and nobody, can pin this guy down. He could be the guy around the corner from you, for all you know.
That letter came to the office on a day I wasn't there, and it was read by Anne Marie Caggiano, works in there, and Pete Hamill. And they called me up and said, this is a lunatic wrote this time. You better come in and look at it. So I said, send it to the police to let them look at it. I'm home, I was working. And the police called back and said, could we meet you at the 109th Precinct? This is a letter from the fellow. And they gave me the letter and said, no, we've got a whole, they gave me a copy. They had the original letter, had to be held as evidence, right? Fine. They said, now, what do you think you could do with it to help us?
Mr. Breslin, sir, don't think that because you haven't heard from me for a while that I went to sleep. No, rather I am still here, like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest, anxious to please Sam. I love my work. Now the void has been filled. On the envelope of the letter, the killer has drawn a sign, including the biological marks for male and female, and the letter S. Not knowing what the future holds, I shall say farewell, and I will see you at the next job. Or should I say, you will see my handiwork at the next job. Remember, Ms. Loria, a reference to the first victim, thank you. Then, before adding some footnotes, he signed, in their blood and from the gutter, Sam's Creation, 44.
The letter was very eerie. I mean, you know, then you know that he read something that you wrote. Somewhere out there, he's reading again what you wrote. It's one of those crimes that's been visited upon man throughout the ages, the demented killer, and you don't know how to stop him.
The summer of '77 won't be easily forgotten by New Yorkers. For one thing, there's a killer on the loose. He calls himself Son of Sam, and during the past year, he has killed 6 people with his .44 caliber revolver. Police say they are nowhere near solving the case.
The New York Post today headlined, "The Mafia is gunning for the .44 caliber killer now." I asked Commissioner Codd about that.
No, I read the paper too. That's all I know about it.
I know what it is to walk around in my childhood without any problems and happy-go-lucky and go where I want, but no longer like that. You have to look over your shoulder, and I find people, when you're walking, people just look over their shoulder.
Two hours before dawn, Sunday morning, a young couple was sitting in this car on a quiet street in Queens.
Residents say they heard 4 shots ring out. Then Judy Placido left the car, which had been parked by that tree, and staggered up 211th Street, here to 45th Road, where she fell just about here. The lights went out at 9:30, and there was a dead silence for possibly 3 to 5 minutes, and suddenly a yell came up from the street. The sound of I guess it must have been 1,000 voices, just at a scream of exultation. I don't know, really. And I said to Belle, my wife, the lights are out, and I think there's going to be hell to pay tonight.
In the worst slums of the city, the light of mindless violence lit up the sky as the blackout divided the town into 2 societies, separate and unequal. In the Bronx, in Harlem, in South Jamaica, in Brooklyn, many of the have-nots abandoned whatever restraint had kept them in check. Tens of thousands of poor became a disorganized army of the night.
There is some sporadic looting in Queens, Manhattan, the West Side, Uptown, and Brooklyn South, Williamsburg, Broadway area.
The cover of total darkness allowed the lowest qualities of previously peaceful people to surface. At first, there was only sporadic rock and bottle throwing at police. Later, there were shots fired. The cops were hard-pressed to keep cool.
This is Broadway in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn the morning after the blackout. Looting and arson erupted here minutes after the lights went out, continued all night and well into the following day. One looter said it was wild. Mobs roamed the streets, smashing windows, ripping out gates, carrying away groceries, clothes, furniture, appliances, whatever they could get their hands on, whatever they could carry away. Some even used cars and vans to haul away their loot. Dozens were arrested along Broadway, but the looters were too many, the police too few.
We seen everybody just break wild, so we just got up, we just went what they did.
During the last few weeks, New Yorkers have been subjected to criminal outrages which are unmatched in recent memory. A night of looting, and another fatal attack by the .44 caliber killer, all sudden vicious acts against which there can be no instant defense.
What will you have for July 29th? He warned in one of his sick and threatening letters to the press and to the police. Sam's a thirsty lad, and he won't let me stop killing until he's had his full of blood. Well, early Sunday morning, just 2 days after the anniversary of his first cold-blooded murder, the man who calls himself the Son of Sam kept his ghastly promise. A quiet street. Two young people sitting in a parked car on Lover's Lane. Then, without warning or motive, the sudden, brutal attack. 4 shots fired from the same .44 caliber revolver he's used before.
The condition of the victims is the man is holding his own. I understand the Stacy Moskowitz has suffered a cardiac arrest and is being given emergency treatment for that, and we just are trying to check to find out her status at this time.
She's still alive, is what you're saying?
As far as we know.
What can you tell me about your son?
We brought him up the right way. Good boy, never any trouble, never involved in any dope, never involved in any arrests. What can I say?
You told him to stay out of Queens.
I told him to stay out of Queens. He says, Dad, I'm going to stay out of Queens, because he used to go to Queens. He says, I'll do it for you and Mom. I'll hang around in Brooklyn. And that's where they found him.
The 4 shots went off, and we knew it was shots. It had to be. And I said to my girlfriend, those were shots. And then this horn started beeping incessantly. And then it stopped, and then it beeped again. And then this man started screaming, help me, God help me. And I ran and called the police. And then my girlfriends and I, instead of being sensible, we ran down the steps and out in front of the house. And we saw this one cop car pull up. And we ran down the street, and the guy was against the fence, slouched. And he was covered with blood. And the girl was covered with blood. It was a horror.
On July 31st, he hid in Brooklyn. Stacy Moskowitz died, and her boyfriend was almost blinded by the unexpected hail of bullets.
At the hospital, her father was stunned.
I still tell you, that's something very dear to me. Great kid.
Miss Moskowitz died of massive brain damage. Her mother referred to that.
And she would have been a vegetable had she lived. And my daughter loved life too much. And she would never have wanted it that way. And she lived with dignity, and she died with dignity. But most important, of the people, that an animal should snuff away a life of a young girl, blind a young boy, and has killed others, and will probably go on killing. An animal like this has to be caught.
Can you just give us a, I guess, an update right now? How's Bob doing? Does he know about Stacy?
No. I felt he's not up to that yet. I just broke the news to him about his eyes yesterday morning.
Will you be the one? Stacy at all?
He asks about Stacy continuously.
And what do you tell him?
And I felt at this time the best thing to say was that she's stable at this time.
Will you be the one who has to tell her that eventually?
I'm going to be the one to tell him.
Why didn't you tell him?
Because I think he's been exposed to enough. I don't think he had to be...
And he still doesn't.
I don't think he has to have that extra hurt. He has time to absorb that later. You raise a child from a baby, and you feel all the hurt that you shared with the child. You have to feel something.
The largest task force in police history went into high gear. Police blanketed Queens and the Bronx with cops in unmarked cars.
Rewards totaling $20,000 have been offered in New York City for information leading to the arrest of Son of Sam.
From New York's award-winning news station, this is the new Channel 11 Action News with Steve Bosch, Pat Harper, Jeff Kamen, Jerry Gerard Sports, and Roberto Tirano's AccuWeather reports.
Good evening. David Berkowitz, 24 years old, a postal worker, walked out of his Yonkers apartment last night, turned the ignition key in his car, and found himself surrounded by police. Well, he said, "You got me." Police say those words ended the biggest manhunt in New York City history with the capture of Son of Sam.
I was sitting on the street side, so the two New York City detectives weren't able to really see him clearly. They kept asking me, "Is he going to the car?" And I said, "Well, I can't see yet." There were two vans parked in front of us. And I said, "It looks like it. He's opening the door." I said, "I think it's him. Let's go." We jumped out of the car. I rushed up to the car. I yelled to him to freeze, that we were the police. He put his hands up. He opened the door, got out of the car, put his hands up. He was then cuffed by New York City. We then put him in the unmarked car and took him down to Yonkers PD.
And this is what they say tripped up the .44 caliber killer, a parking ticket. David Berkowitz drove this cream-colored Ford Galaxy from his home in Yonkers to Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, early on the morning of July 31st. He parked in front of 290 Bay 17th Street. Then police say he went to stalk his 12th and 13th victims. But in the place he parked was this fire hydrant, and police had the lead they needed. Jeff Kamen picks up the story from there.
After more than 13 months of following thousands of leads down endless blind alleys, the detectives of the Brooklyn Omega Squad, part of that 300-cop 44 killer manhunt, captured the man they say is Son of Sam. The ice-cold trail heated up suddenly during the past week. A Brooklyn woman who saw a car parked illegally and occupied by a strange-looking man moments before she heard the shots of the last Son of Sam attack finally contacted police.
The man come towards me, and he looked me straight in the face. He looked at my dog, and right here, we crossed each other. So he had his arm straight down. He had a long thing, like a bell, sticking up his sleeve. And he made a left turn. I heard a boom. I didn't know he was a killer. I didn't know he looked nice.
Following a 2 a.m. news conference at which captured weapons were shown, New York City's Chief of Detectives John Keenan told me which aspect of the probe paid off.
One of the many things that was checked out by the detectives were the cars that may have been seen in the area on the night of the homicide. And among the things that were done in this connection were the checking of cars which had received summonses in the area on that night. One such car was this car, the defendant's car, which had received the summons for a hydrant violation on the night of the homicide. When the detectives went to the vicinity of his apartment house
on a routine check,
on one of the many checks, they saw his car, and upon examining it visually from outside, saw the butt of a machine gun sticking out of a gunny sack. They were in the process of getting a search warrant for the car when the defendant came out of the house, entered the car, started the car, and he was arrested for possession of the gun. He made admissions following that.
They had done a tremendous amount of the terrible, tedious office work that, you know, that you don't see on the television. On television, they all come up with the car, squealing, and they jump out, Lieutenant, bang, 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 it's all over. How do you really solve it? Here's one of the worst murderers the world's ever seen. How do you solve it? You go through files looking for license plates.
Police transported David Berkowitz from headquarters to Brooklyn Central Booking. After, my sources say, he confessed to being the 44 killer. After he told them he was a killing machine, ordered by a voice speaking through a neighbor's dog to carry out his bloody outrages against young, pretty women.
In general, his neighbors describe him as basically nice, quiet, kept to himself, perhaps a little strange, perhaps a little moody. Son of Sam killed 6 and wounded 7. How many people do you know, your neighbors, people who might fit that description? Nice, quiet, a little moody, kept to himself.
Behind the doors, the heavily guarded doors of the Chief of Detectives' office, a large suite of offices, in fact, the accused killer was quizzed and quizzed again by lawyers for the District Attorney's office. And while that was going on, at precisely 18 minutes past 5 this morning, word came from the ballistics section of the New York Police Department, confirming word that the .44 caliber Bulldog revolver recovered by police in Yonkers was in fact the same gun which fired the bullet which killed Stacy Moskowitz.
I feel great, and I think the people of our city will feel great relief and greater feeling of confidence and safety, and they'll feel the way I do, that police did a tremendous job and they're the best police force in the whole world.
You saw Son of Sam, the man alleged to be Son of Sam, as he was brought in here. What thoughts went through your mind at that moment? What feelings did you have?
Well, I was a little surprised that I saw a person of his stature. He seemed to be a very well-built and heavy person. He didn't resemble the recent set of sketches, but he apparently, from what I saw, resembled the first sketch.
Police discovered in his car the .44 Bulldog revolver and a Thompson submachine gun. I'm told Berkowitz planned to use the revolver again and again until he felt police were getting close. Then he decided to take the .45 caliber machine gun, commit mass murder at a Long Island disco, and fight it out with Suffolk police in a blaze of glory.
Praise the Lord.
No, we're happy.
It's over. We're very, very happy. My daughter called me up last night. Her husband is in a band, and one of the band members was playing in a discotheque. And in the middle of his act, the police came in and announced that the Son of Sam was captured, and the whole place was in an uproar. Everybody was screaming, crying, laughing. They were so happy. She called me up at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I guess I want to tell you, we didn't sleep last night. We were so excited and so happy. Wonderful, wonderful news.
It's a sin that they had to take him alive. I still feel a lot of grief in me for the people that had to get hurt. That's all I can say. They should have done something to him. He looked very happy last night when they brought him in. But as long as it's over, that's the main thing.
It's all over. How do you feel?
Oh, fantastic. We're so relieved, the whole family. My husband called me this morning at 7:30 from Jersey, and he woke me up. They caught him because we've been so, worried over here. We were afraid to go down the block. Our children were afraid to play in the park. It's great. We're just so relieved about it. It's just fantastic. It's like a big load off our backs. And I'm sure everybody feels that way over here. We're just so happy. We've been waiting. We were just telling my neighbor, every morning we put the radio on, we just wish to hear say, we caught him, he was caught. This is the first thing we want to hear in the morning. And that was the first thing we heard this morning. It was fantastic. It was great.
Detectives described Berkowitz's apartment as squalid. Quilts covering the windows. A single filthy mattress on the floor, surrounded by the lowest pornography.
Other evidence found included a .44 caliber gun, which ballistic tests have proven to be the same weapon that killed Sam's latest victim.
Because Craig is Craig, so must the streets be filled with Craig. Craig is a man who lives in the same building with him, who's a deputy sheriff.
So, Craig, in your honor, I present you with my corpses so that you should have plenty of meat in the off-season. Your brother, White Plains, New York, God help and keep the debt.
He's going to be charged with 4 counts. 1, murder in the 2nd degree, an A1 felony, punishable for 25 years to life. 2, attempted murder in the 2nd degree. What's his name? The young fellow last week, Violante. Also, assault in the 1st degree, a C felony, and possession of a deadly weapon in the 3rd degree, a D felony.
The man police are calling Son of Sam was adopted by Nat and Pearl Berkowitz and taken into their Bronx apartment a few weeks after he was born. That was June 1st, 1953. People who remember young David say he was often picked on in grammar school. Later, he went to Columbus High and spent a year at Bronx Community College. He was described as a loner who didn't date much. He enlisted in the Army in 1971 and served 3 years, 1 in Korea. Berkowitz had a fairly good military record and was a qualified sharpshooter. Before becoming a postal worker, he had spent some time as a cabbie. He was an unarmed security guard and joined the auxiliary police force with the 45th Precinct in the Bronx.
Berkowitz was an auxiliary policeman from 70 to 73. He received normal training in law and in unarmed defense. He did not receive firearms training.
Where did he learn how to shoot? Do we know yet?
He was in the military service, and a normal concomitant of military service would have been training in firearms.
The Son of Sam designation associated with the New York City murderer is quite familiar to Terry Peterson. In fact, Son of Sam was his idea.
We discussed many times why he was there, and I told him that we are sons of Sam and that we are sent here by the United States government doing the work for them.
So then the Son of Sam was a reference to son of Uncle Sam, working for Uncle Sam, that sort of thing?
Yes, this is the impression, and basically turned it around in his own head and thinking to the aspect that he was a pawn on a chessboard. At no time did I ever feel or have any type of feeling that he was this type of person as far as violence, because he was anti-violence, although he was anti-establishment also, and he was very much against the government.
Tonight, Berkowitz is being held here in a specially secured building of the Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn to begin what could be up to 30 days of testing to determine his mental competency. It's the same hospital where Stacy Moskowitz died just 10 days ago.
Psychotic is not a defense under the penal law of the state of New York. In order to avoid a trial, a defendant must be legally insane, and there is a vast difference between being medically, psychiatrically ill and being legally insane. Being psychotic is not necessarily legally insane.
And even a man who says he gets his orders through a dog could stand trial in the state of New York.
I don't want to speculate upon what would or would not be legal insanity in relation to a specific set of facts. I think we have to just wait to see how the case develops.
You're going ahead so you can prosecute, though?
We are proceeding with the prosecution, and we expect to prosecute this defendant, yes.
I really don't know. The distinction between legal and medical insanity is great. In this state, it is very easy to be considered legally sane for someone who may very well be psychotic nonetheless.
Has your client admitted to police he is the son of Sam?
I was not present when the police questioned him, so I don't know what he told them.
What feeling do you get from your client now? Is he coherent? Does he understand the world around him?
Jeff, I never spoke to him before this morning. Consequently, I have no basis for comparison. If I did, I don't think it would be fair to him for me to tell you, because no one knows yet at this juncture whether he's going to raise an insanity defense.
If he was a man you just met on the street and had the kind of conversation you had with today, would you think that he was a normal man?
He might appear to some people to be such.
To you?
I would have reservations.
And I had nothing against these victims. Who were these people to me? They were just people. They didn't, I didn't hate them. I wasn't angry against them. Who were to do it? Well, Sam did it through me. He used me. He made me go out there and do it. I did it for him, for blood.
What do you think should happen to him?
What do you think? Dead. Period.
I think he should be executed. I think he should be punished for all his crimes. I think he should do what he's done to other people.
I would have liked more to have happened to him. The electric chair, for instance. That should come back.
He still don't deserve to live. I still have to support him for being where he is today and where he'll spend the rest of his life.
What do you want to see done with him?
I want to see him punished.
How?
How slow? First his eyes should go like he killed Robert's eyes. And then his brain should be picked like a chicken with cancer and let it go through. Slow, slow, very slow.
Who did you aim your gun at? Asked the judge. Berkowitz replied, Stacy Moskowitz. Jerry Moskowitz laid his head against the courtroom wall and sobbed. Ricky Moskowitz wiped tears from her eyes. Her mother glared straight ahead. Berkowitz said he understood that what he had done was wrong. A plea of guilty was entered.
In New York City, David Berkowitz was supposed to be sentenced today for the Son of Sam killings. He wasn't. Robert Hager tells us why.
There was no hint of trouble to come as Berkowitz was driven to court in an armored van. But once inside, a struggle broke out on the 7th floor. Berkowitz said he didn't want to be sentenced. He kicked and bit some of 5 officers trying to move him. At one point, he lunged toward a glass window. 2 officers were hurt, but not seriously, before Berkowitz was finally subdued. But when Berkowitz was brought in, it was evident he was still agitated, wild-eyed, in handcuffs. And then he stunned the court, shouting repeatedly, "Stacy was a whore. I'd kill her again." Mrs. Moskowitz was on her feet, screaming back, "You animal!" Violante shouted, "You should be killed, you creep!" and collapsed, sobbing, his father comforting him. Guards forced Berkowitz back out of court. Judge Joseph Corso started to postpone sentencing another 3 weeks when there was a new outburst. "It's not justice," screamed a friend of the Moskowitzes. "How much can the families take?"
I really couldn't control myself. Anybody with any heart at all, any emotions, wouldn't have been able to control themselves either, what he said. And I felt very angry that it was even permitted to happen.
Three judges from different boroughs of New York heaped a total of 275 years in prison on Berkowitz. Under state law, he could conceivably be paroled in 25 years, but the judges recommended he spend the rest of his life behind bars. As court closed, Judge William Kappelman looked at Berkowitz and told him, "You grovel in the very depths of human degradation."
The son of Sam could make millions selling his story, so the law was passed to take that money from criminals like Berkowitz and give it to their victims. And several of his victims, like Robert Violani, who was shot in the eye, have successfully sued for their share of $100,000 in profits.
It can never bring back my eyesight, the money. Can't be replaced. But I feel I should be compensated a lot more than what, we will be getting compensated for.